Do you remember COVID times? Of course you do. Then you must also remember how the Indian government dealt with it. And while we were here, did you see how the media covered it? It was like a witch hunt. In the name of helping the poor, emotions were being stroked. Journalists sitting like vultures outside Shamshan Ghat and primetime anchors using the opportunity to bash their ideological rivals were common sights. Rarely would anyone ever do a comparative analysis of India's response with that of its developed counterparts. The fact is that, yes, the situation was not good in India, but it was far better than countries having twice or thrice per capita GDP than India. It was far better than countries spend more on healthcare and have better health infrastructure. Even Stanford University can confirm it now. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Savita Mishra and this is TFI Post. Recently, a working paper was published by a joint collaboration of Stanford University and the Institute for Competitiveness. The paper is titled Healing the Economy, Estimating the Economic Impact of India's Vaccination and Related Measures. Amit Kapoor and Richard Dasher are the brains behind it. The paper reflects on India's journey during COVID times. Here is a brief and point-by-point explanation of it. The first parameter authors looked upon is to see whether lockdowns in India were effective or not. There are controversies around the effectiveness of lockdowns all across the world. The first controversy is related to the origin of the concept. Lockdown strategy emanated from China, an authoritarian state. Naturally, one would doubt its effectiveness in democratic societies. Secondly, there have been concerns over real-life implications as places like Sweden and Florida fared better than their counterparts that relied on absolute lockdowns. The paper marks India's lockdown strategy as a good mix of flexibility and rigidity. It highlights the Modi government's efforts to mitigate the risks related to lockdowns. 1,900 hospitals were declared as specially dedicated to COVID-related concerns. India had overall 1.7 lakh beds and 21,000 ICU beds, especially for COVID-19. Side by side, COVID testing facility was also ramped up. The country that didn't have the capacity to conduct 100 tests per day in initial days was doing 1 lakh tests per day by the end of May 2020. Apart from these, the 4 T's, tracing, tracking, testing and treating was another big factor in India's lockdown strategy. Their effectiveness can be gauged from the fact that 1 lakh lives were saved during an effective lockdowns in March and April 2020. India took 175 days to clock its COVID peak from the first 100 cases. The number is more than thrice the number of days taken by the developed countries like France, Italy, Germany, Canada and Russia. In India, 1% increase in stringency resulted in 4.6% less spread of virus. This helped in causing 5.9% less deaths per capita. Overall, India saved 20 lakh lives due to its lockdown strategy. Authors took note of the fact that a large share of credit also goes to cooperative federalism. Citing the success of places like Bhilwara, Dharavi and Kerala, it was appreciative of the fact that the Modi government took a bottom-up approach, unlike China. Most COVID-related powers were delegated to local authorities. To mitigate the economic impacts of lockdown, a relief package was essential. India's relief package was broadly announced for 4 domains, namely MSMEs, social employment generation and agriculture. For MSMEs, subordinate debt for stressed MSMEs and guaranteed emergency credit line were the 2 main schemes. The authors calculated the impact by relying on MSMEs' contribution to the Indian economy, which is 30%. It is scattered over 6.3 crore such companies. Through a relief package, the government aimed to protect the Indian economy from the loss of $110.18 billion of GDP, which is 5.38% of the GDP. However, 9% of MSMEs did shut down, bringing the overall impact down to $100.26 billion, which is about 4.9% of GDP. Protecting MSMEs is not enough, and ensuring that they have an employable population is also a big challenge. For this purpose, people were given food and income security by the government. Authors of the paper have treated Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana and Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, Atmanirbhar Bharat, Rozgar Yojana and PM Garib Kalyan Rozgar Abhiyan as fiscal stimuli, which they are, but for some unknown reasons people don't call it. Under ABRY, nearly 6 million Indians availed the benefits. Under PMGKRY, 50.78 crore man-days of work were created. Taking minimum daily wage in accounting, the overall impact of these schemes on the Indian economy has been estimated at $11.81 billion. On the other hand, cumulative assignments under the PM Garib Kalyan package were marked at $33.81 billion. Their overall impact was $26.24 billion. It is pertinent to note that the return was not fabulous in the social sector domain in absolute terms. It was not even the target, since the final aim of social sector schemes was not to let the demand go down due to people spending on food. With food and employment security, most of the urban and unorganized working class had migrated to villages. Apart from Manrega, farming emerged as a key avenue for keeping people engaged. The government also pitched in with its own packages for the sector. The following chart depicts how much each subsector of farming got in its COVID relief package. In author's words, I am quoting, "These schemes varied from DBTs to loan extensions to subsidies to financing projects. In total, the government allocated $49.4 billion for the sector. Such is the impact of other schemes that despite an increase in the employment rate of agriculture, less than 50% of the amount was availed by the beneficiaries." The aforementioned schemes could keep going on and on until the emptying of coffers. Thankfully, vaccines arrived on time. But India had a peculiar problem of its own with regard to vaccines. With a population of 1.4 billion, even autocracies that operate on single order face challenges in executing vaccinations, let alone democracies. To sort the issue, India relied on a phase-wise approach to vaccination. In the first phase, frontline workers were provided the vaccine so that economic activity could kickstart. Then vulnerability became the main factor. That is why people belonging to middle age were inoculated in the last phase, as they were the least vulnerable of the bunch. Given the size of the population, there were concerns that overcrowding could cause chaos. To address this, vaccination sites were divided into 4 sections, namely registration, waiting, vaccination and observation, as well as entry and exit points. Furthermore, in order to track each individual's vaccination status, the vaccination process was routed through the CoWIN app, an interface that mapped the entire vaccination process. Finally, to supplement the country's native cold storage capacity, the COVID-19 vaccine was stored in 29,000 cold chain points, 240 walk-in coolers, 70 walk-in freezers, 45,000 ice line refrigerators, 41,000 deep freezers, and 300 solar refrigerators. Authors of the study compared India's vaccination strategy with that of other countries and found its performance more satisfactory. According to their estimation, more than 34 lakhs lives were saved in India due to vaccination drives. Taking the minimum wage at 269 with workforce participation rate of 38.2% pins the direct impact of vaccination at Rs 11,000 crore. Given the fact that more than Rs 19,675 crores was spent on vaccination, it is a net loss. But it is not the same when you calculate the total impact. According to RBI, 1% change in initial expenditure raises income by 2.5%. That puts the total impact of vaccination at Rs 27,400 crore. All in all, India's vaccination drive helped in a contribution of Rs 7,725 crore to the Indian economy. It helped bring a significant change on other metrics like GDP per capita and GDP per employed. The following 2 graphs give a much more nuanced and clear picture of impact. The net benefit accrued due to vaccination is $15.42 billion. India's success in tackling COVID has remained an uncovered story till now. Look at the post-COVID world. It is India and only India. Which country became the chief exporter of vaccines when the so-called developed world was pulling out its hand? It's India. Which country had pitched in to secure food security during the Ukraine-Russia crisis? It's India. Which country is fighting tooth and nail against the discriminatory WTO regime? It's India. Which country responded first to the Turkish earthquake? It's India. Which country is the fastest growing major economy in the world? It's India. Which country is recession proof? It's India. Which country's last budget before the election year is not populist? Not the United States of America, but India. India has acquired a significant stature in post-COVID world. The Stanford University paper only puts a numerical stamp on it.